Hey everyone, welcome back to Stadium Stats. Today we'll be taking a look at the championship round of the NFL playoffs, followed by my power rankings of the remaining 4 teams. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Up first, we've got our AFC division championship round between the number 1 seeded Kansas City Chiefs and the number 2 seeded Buffalo Bills. The Bills, they're coming off a win over the Ravens in a game where they played really well. They didn't turn the ball over, and Josh Allen had a really good game. The defense played fantastic and came up with multiple turnovers, 3 to be exact, an interception and 2 fumbles. And the offense just played lights out, didn't make errors. They didn't play exceptionally well, but they played exactly how they needed to against a really good Ravens defense. Their run offense against that Ravens number 1 run defense did not look bad at all, and they just played a complete football game. The Ravens, they played pretty well too, especially in the second half, but they just couldn't get it done, especially with all those turnovers and the unfortunate dropped 2-point conversion at the end to tie it up and possibly send it into overtime. The Chiefs, on the other hand, they're coming off a win over the Texans in a game where they played worse in almost every statistical category than the Texans in that game, but they didn't have any errors. And the Texans had multiple special teams errors, from a missed extra point to a mixed field goal to a muffed punt, all of which caused the Chiefs to score. And so, because of that, while the Texans did outplay the Chiefs on offense and arguably on defense too, Travis Kelce had such a good game, and Patrick Mahomes played without any errors, and that team as a whole played without any errors, to the point where that's how the Chiefs win. That is their formula. Wait for the other team to make mistakes and capitalize on that. And that's exactly what they did. And they played really well at doing that. And while they had less yards, while they had less everything statistically on offense, from third down conversions to fourth down conversions, they had more points, and that's what matters. In this matchup, I think it's going to be a really close one, and it's near impossible to pick against the Chiefs. They make it to this is their 7th straight AFC championship game. They make it there every single year. Patrick Mahomes plays unbelievable in the playoffs, and this team capitalizes on other teams' mistakes. But I think the problem for the Chiefs is that the Bills don't make mistakes this year. And so if the Bills can play flawless football and not turn the ball over, I think the Bills have a good shot of winning this. That being said, it is really hard to pick against the Chiefs, so I am still going to go with the Chiefs to win this game. However, I really think the Bills stand a chance, and I wouldn't be surprised if either team won, especially considering if the Bills have no turnovers and play a pretty flawless game. I think they actually can pull it off. I just think that's a pretty big if against a really good Kansas City defense. So I'm going with the Chiefs to win. On the other side of the ball, we've got the NFC matchup between the number 6 seeded Washington Commanders and the number 2 seeded Philadelphia Eagles. And yes, this is a divisional matchup in the championship game. The Eagles, they're coming off a win over the Rams in a game where Saquon had 2 60-plus yard rushing touchdowns, making it 4 on the season against the Rams alone and 6 on the season total. That 4 against the Rams, 60-plus yard rushing touchdowns, would be most in a season ever by any player if it wasn't for the fact that Saquon had 2 outside of that game too. So Saquon is now number 1 with 6 and number 2 with 4 versus the Rams in 60-plus yard rushing touchdowns. He's just unbelievable. He can't be stopped. Their offense looks fantastic, even with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Jalen Hurts not playing all too well, because they're just not needed. That run game is playing fantastic. Dallas Goedert's playing really well, and Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown are coming up when they're needed. Jalen Hurts also had a huge rushing touchdown in that game and looked really good. The Commanders, on the other hand, they looked unstoppable on offense, and while their defense couldn't stop the Lions, that's not atypical. The Lions always score over 30 points, and they were able to hold them to 31, so that defense played pretty well. They also had forced 3 turnovers against Jared Goff, which made them look even better, as well as the fact that their offense played unbelievable football. They could not be stopped. They scored 45 points. They were scoring on every possession. They weren't turning the ball over. They weren't punting, and so they just looked unstoppable. If they can play like how they did in that previous game, I think they end up winning this game. But I think the Philadelphia Eagles proved through their 2 matchups earlier in the season that they are the more dominant team than the Washington Commanders. That being said, the Commanders are spiking and getting hot right when it matters. So I think this will be a really close matchup, as most divisional matchups tend to be, and as most Commanders games tends to be. But I am going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles to win, especially if Jalen Hurts can get healthy before this game, because he did get a little banged up in that last game. And so if he can play well, if A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith can get more involved, and if Saquon continues to play unbelievable, which he has been, then I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles to win, especially considering the Washington Commanders do not have that good of a run defense. Looking over at my top 4 power rankings, at number 4, I've got the Commanders. I think all 4 teams are basically on very similar levels, but the Commanders, while they have the highest powered offense, they have the lowest powered defense. Maybe you could argue the Bills, but they have the lowest powered defense, it seems. Their run defense isn't very good. And besides that, this team seems amazing, but they also have a rookie quarterback, which can't be understated. While Jaden Daniels doesn't play like a rookie quarterback, he could have a rookie moment at any point because he has never been in this situation, and it seems like the other 3 teams have a lot more experience in the playoffs and in especially the championship round. So for that reason, they're in at 4. At 3, I've got the Philadelphia Eagles. They have some hiccups they got to work out on offense, especially in their passing game, as A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith have not been very involved. Jalen Hurts isn't passing for a lot of yards, but other than that, they look fantastic on offense. They have the best running game of anyone left in the playoffs, and their defense is playing amazing as a pass defense. The run defense has a little room for improvement, but it's still unbelievable. It just doesn't compare to how good their pass defense is. So for that reason, they're in at 3. The only thing holding them back is I think the Chiefs and Bills have more experience in the championship round, and especially their quarterbacks. And number 2, I've got the Bills. Josh Allen hasn't been back to the championship round since 2020, but he's been making it far in the playoffs every year. They win at least one playoff game, it seems. They're the 2 seed this year for a reason. Their offense is keeping up with every team, and they just outscored one of the best teams in the league in the Ravens in what was the closest matchup of the weekend for a reason, and it's not because the Bills played bad. Their defense actually played way better than it had most of the regular season. They forced multiple turnovers, and that gives me a lot of confidence in this team. I just can't put them over the Chiefs because at number 1 is the Chiefs. They have the most experience in the playoffs. Patrick Mahomes has the most experience in the playoffs. They've made it to the most Super Bowls. None of these other teams have made it to a Super Bowl late in recent years, or with any of these quarterbacks, except for Jalen Hurts, who made it once. But Patrick Mahomes has made it 4 times and has won 3 of those. He's also made it to 7 straight championship rounds, and that can't be understated, and he has more experience. He wins most of his championship rounds. He wins most of his playoff rounds against anybody, especially against Josh Allen. He's had the wins in the playoffs, and for that reason, they're in at 1. They just have the experience, and that can't be overstated. Also, their offense played a lot better in that game, even without their receivers performing very well. But Travis Kelce looked great, and the run game struggled a bit too. But Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce's connection looked way better than it did most of the regular season, if not the whole thing, and that defense continues to play really, really well, holding the Texans to 12 points on offense. So for that reason, they're coming in at number 1. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and follow me on my socials on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. And with that, I'll see you guys for the Super Bowl. Enjoy the championship round. Peace.